The next section in the exhibition is called Lure of the Smokies. It's really a section devoted to artists who were not from East Tennessee, but they came to East Tennessee because of the beauty of this region. Some of them came during summers and made regular painting trips and then went back to their home locations. Others came to East Tennessee from elsewhere, found the beauty of here so intoxicating that they stayed for the remainder of their careers. One artist that came through fairly quickly, that many people are surprised to learn came to East Tennessee, was Ansel Adams. He's best known for his scenes of Yosemite National Park, New Mexico, other western landmarks. But here he comes to East Tennessee in 1948 as part of a government-sponsored project and takes 3 total photographs in the Smokies. 2 of those 3 are on view here. And there's a letter from Adams to one of his friends at that time that expresses his concern and frustration with photographing the Smokies, and he talks about how devilishly hard capturing the Smokies is, perhaps because of the misty, humid environment and just how lush the atmosphere was. It's hard to sort of step back and get a broad panorama that he was used to. Will Henry Stevens was another important artist who came from Louisiana and spent summers in the Smoky Mountains, both on the Tennessee side and the North Carolina side. And Stevens was an important modern artist who looked at the landscape, had a religious zeal for the landscape, and liked to break it down into areas of color, areas of simplified form. He used different styles. There are times when his style was much more descriptive. There are times when his style looked like it was inspired by perhaps Asian calligraphic painting and landscape painting, where it's very linear and flattened. And then he had another style where he breaks down the landscape into areas of geometric form, almost inspired by Clay or Kandinsky. And it's very much an abstracted view of nature. And we have a couple of works here that give you a sense of his stylistic range. Here's a pastel by Will Henry Stevens. He loved pastel. It enabled him to work quickly, very spontaneously. It gave him a nice, rich, colorful effect. You can see how he's broken down the landscape into areas, flat areas. And if you look closely, you'll see how he's reduced trees and mountains to almost cartoon-like simplified lines. The atmosphere tends to be very loose. He's raking the side of the pastel crayon across the paper and catching areas where you get the feeling of a brilliant atmosphere. Here's an oil painting by Stevens. Again, you get a sense that there are mountains here, but he's broken down the landscape forms so much that they appear to be almost cut-out areas of color, almost like you might see in a quilt. There are some references to perhaps a building. You can see maybe windows and boards, perhaps a cabin in the mountains with a chimney. Not quite sure. Again, he leaves a lot of open area for us to interpret his interpretation of the landscape. But he devoted most of his career to painting the Smokies, both broad vistas as well as much more focused passages.